Hello and welcome to News Central Television. I am Dapo, Adegboye, and here are stories making rounds beyond the continent. We begin the news with the Middle East conflict, where aid agencies in Geneva have once again voiced their anger and frustration at the continued suffering of civilians, in particular children, in the Gaza Strip due to the ongoing war between Israel and Hamas. Now, James Elder of Unicef said that not even lip service have been paid to requirements under international law to safeguard medical facilities, food and water. On her part, Margaret Harris of the World Health Organization said it is beyond belief that the world is allowing the situation to continue, describing it as unconscionable.
I'm furious that those with power shrug as the humanitarian nightmares unleashed on 1 million children. I'm furious that children who are recovering from amputations in hospitals are then killed in those hospitals. I'm furious that there are more children hiding as we speak somewhere who will no doubt be hit and have amputations in the coming days. I'm furious that of all the senseless attacks, the only admittance of dumb is the use of dumb bombs. I'm furious that disease is as well armed as the warring parties, but it gets absolutely no attention. Lisa, I'm furious that Christmas is likely going to bring increased savagery and attacks as the world is distracted with its own, love and goodwill. I'm furious that now we're at 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 children killed, and they're becoming statistics and not stories. I'm furious that the hypocrisy is crushing empathy, and to a degree, I'm furious at myself for not being able to.
Meanwhile, Israel's President Isaac Herzog says the country is ready for another humanitarian pause in Gaza to secure the release of more hostages being held in the territory and the delivery of much-needed aid. The Israeli government is undergoing international pressure to agree with a ceasefire amidst mounting civilian casualties and a severe humanitarian crisis in Gaza. Pressure is also growing at home for a deal for more captives to be freed after 3 Israeli hostages were mistakenly killed by Israeli soldiers last week. Last month, a deal between Israel and Hamas, brokered by foreign mediators, led to a temporary pause in hostilities and the release of about 100 hostages in exchange for Palestinians held in Israeli jails.
The fact that Israel is ready for another humanitarian pause and additional humanitarian aid in order to enable the release of hostages. And the responsibility lies fully with Sinwar and the leadership.
Joining me to unpack this is Bolu Michael-Biyi, a foreign policy analyst. Thank you so much for your time, Bolu. All right, Bolu, if you can hear me. The United Nations Security Council convening as part of efforts towards a lasting ceasefire in Gaza. Now, after a previous bid was vetoed by the United States, do you see anything positive coming out of this one?
To be frank, I don't see anything positive coming out from the United States because 2 things. President has showed that the United States will rarely change their stance. Especially after a couple of days. This time last week it was the Security Council meeting. And then the U.S. vetoed it, and then 7 days or 8 days later, they're saying something else. It doesn't look good on the United. Wouldn't look good on the United States diplomatically on the international scene. Secondly, the United States recently pledged their support afresh to Israel, and they demonstrated their seriousness by the veto. I do not think that. The United States will change their position maybe later, but not this early.
All right. Now, despite the continued global pressure for Israel to agree to a ceasefire in Gaza, particularly in the face of many deaths and destructions, the United States has vowed to continue funding its ally. What are your reactions?
The funding of U.S. ally, it also means that funding them to continue the killings and continue the atrocities that they might be committing. And the question is, what is the United States' interest, especially in this war? It's It's probably economic, it's probably military, it's probably political as well. But one thing that we all know is that the United States will not invest. Nobody will invest in something that they don't have an interest in some way or some benefit in the long run. So what U.S. interest is exactly is what, we need to start questioning, because financing their allies also means financing and giving them the capacity to kill more people and hold more hostages and commit all sorts of human rights violations. And it's quite unfortunate that instead of having a ceasefire and a sustainable solution, it's this kind of commitments that we're having.
Now, one of the major concerns has been the humanitarian crisis that has emanated from the war, with the WHO saying it has run out of words to describe the horror being witnessed by the besieged Palestinian territory. Now, while the first ceasefire agreement really didn't, solve much, the Israeli president today said that Israel is ready for another humanitarian pause. Now, do you think there is, some sort of lasting solution in the, finding a lasting solution to this particular, situation happening at the Gaza Strip?
Calling, the readiness for another, ceasefire would look on the face of it like we're moving forward, but it's just practically postponing the day of evil, because there's a ceasefire, then the killing again, then another ceasefire. That's not what people are calling for. What people need is a sustainable solution, a lasting solution, a free Palestine is existing alongside Israel. And that's what we want to see, a peaceful Gaza Strip. So this ceasefire postponement, just postponing the day of evil, it doesn't stop the killing. And the havoc that can be done, there can be so much havoc done in a day than even a week. So even the calling for ceasefire 2 days after a previous ceasefire doesn't mean that lives will not be lost, doesn't mean that people are not going to lose their property, doesn't mean that people are not going to be injured or blood is not going to be shared. We need a lasting solution, a permanent ceasefire.
What do you suggest as a lasting solution?
Yeah, they broke up, recognizing the historical context of the Palestinian people, sitting side by side and actually having a clear plan of negotiation, and trying to merge their interests together. And ultimately, a permanent ceasefire to stop the shooting, that's it, basically.
Now let's talk about... let's talk about the role of the international community and also international agencies. Do you think that the international community and the United Nations Security Council has actually failed in its bid to resolve this particular conflict? And has the United Nations become a toothless bulldog, particularly when it comes to the area of maintaining international peace?
First thing is that, number one, I was going to say that the United States has been the beneficiary, Israel has been the highest beneficiary of U.S. support since after World War II. Secondly, they are heavily committed to Israel in a lot of ways. And thirdly, the United Nations is a voluntary organization. That means that most of their resolutions are not binding. So there's so much they can do. They can only persuade, admonish. I think so far they've been stretching themselves to their diplomatic limits. I think it's a way forward that we're at least having these discussions at the Security Council at the UN level, compared to other regional organizations that we're seeing that they don't actually do much. For example, ECOWAS. So it's a good development that we're at least having these conversations at the international level. And I think the United Nations, they're trying and exceeding and stretching their diplomatic limits to solve the issue.
Okay, so there are also some sort of related concerns that this war is spreading around the Middle East region, with Iran-backed Houthi rebels in Yemen attacking ships in the Red Sea and the world's most important route for oil and fuel shipments, particularly in solidarity with Hamas. Now, how do you see this scenarios playing out?
Okay, first is that, it's instances like these that elongates the war. Because Israel will say on their mind, okay, as far as you're bombing our ships and disrupting the normal course of economics in the world or the market in the world, we'll keep bombing, we'll keep destroying Palestine. So this is one of the factors that kind of elongates the war. Second factor is that it sort of draws other countries into the war, and it could be potentially damaging for Hamas, because by the time, for instance, they're bombing a Greek or a Spanish ship, they've successfully drawn Greece and Spain into the war. And by the time they keep doing that, so countries don't want their economic interest to be threatened. They pull resources together, and on the positive flip side, more resources, more military strength from other countries will potentially defeat Hamas. Hamas may be shooting themselves in the foot in a way, because now bombing other countries' ships, they are drawing other countries into the war.
Thank you so much for your time, Bolu Michael-Biyi.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.